Hi, my name's TechDave, and today we're doing a long-term review of why you might buy the Lenovo ThinkPad X280 in the year 2025. So let's dive right on it. So as I so often do, a brief tour of the studio. So we've got the piano up there. T480 on recording duties now, pile of crap, blah, 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 blah. All this is not relevant, we've got guitars, weights. But today's scenario will be running pretty much on this whole desk setup. So we've got like a cozy corner here to one side, which I've been using to live stream coding. So you'll see in the cards probably a playlist of them, or you can find them on my channel. We've got a vertical laptop riser, which the X280 will eventually be in, but currently it's just there. So we to do the specs in a moment, so if you want to wait for that, that'd be good. And then we've got the Chromebook there, but that can be swapped out with any small form factor laptop. We've got mouse and keyboard, we've got a laptop riser, so that when I use this cable to connect the eGPU to the X280, it connects to this screen. This Samsung monitor is capture carded, that's connected to the P51 with eGPU. PlayStation 4, 2 capture cards now, 2, because I found my old one. And we're going to be sort of using, let me just frame it up nicely for you. This area, oh, I added a shelf up there, I forgot to point that out, with my wind instruments and brass. But yeah, that's sort of where we're going to be featuring most of the stuff in the video. We're going to look into some specs, gaming benchmarks, programming, coding, type scenario. What else to quickly go through in the overview? We're going to look at some details about the device. We're going to do some synthetic benchmarks. We're going to do some gaming. We're going to do this desk build and discuss it. We're going to do some coding tests, ergonomics on the go, because I bought a new battery for this as well. So the current battery, even though it says it will last 5.5 hours, which is really strange because it was just absolutely balked before. And so I don't know where it's getting this 5.5 hours figure from, but I bought a new battery thinking it was needed it. This seems to be working, but when I've had it before, it lasted half an hour and then just died. So I don't know whether that was maybe a Windows 11 thing that was causing the issue, or whether we'll see. I'm going to keep running it on battery and see if we actually get anywhere near this level of performance, because it's quite possible that it's a battery issue. Because basically prior, in the last video, this died after 20 minutes and only gave us 20 minutes battery life. So I don't know how, where, or when it's developed 5 hours battery life, but that's quite impressive. But I brought a brand new 48 kilowatt per hour battery for it. So watts per hour, kilowatts per hour, whatever the correct term is. Bought a brand new battery for it, so I'll be fitting that later in the video. And then outside of that, I've just listed everything we're going to be doing, so that'll be for the OTG section. We'll probably fit that just before. So we're going to look at a whole bunch of stuff, and yeah, let's dive into the actual video. Boom. So, ladies and gentlemen, non-binaries and all in between, here we are. So, let me run you through the specs and setup of this X280. So, said so multiple times. Right. The CPU is the i5 8250U at 1.6 gigahertz. It's got 8 gigs of DDR4, 2400 megahertz soldered, but it's in dual channel, so it actually performs pretty well. The swap space, if memory serves, I forget what it's called in Windows, but the equivalent of swap space is like 11 gig on the SSD. Let me just check on the RAM. So 13.4 gig committed, and then 2.7 gigs available. It's using like a lot of RAM, just sat here idling on the desktop, but such is life. CPU, we're on battery though as well, so just keep that in mind, we're on battery saver, so it's just sipping CPU. It's probably using a lot more RAM because of that. Don't know quite what's going on with it. Where did I get to though? And then drive wise, I've got, why is this going so slow? Have I put it on the power saving setting? Let me just negotiate that, hold on a second. No, that's actually Windows 10 doing it, right. So yeah, in the previous segment of the video, I was alarmed and astonished by the battery performance, but it's used 9% battery in like the last 5 minutes. So I think the battery's still booked, so it wasn't a complete waste of money buying the brand new battery. So we'll have a new battery at the end, which should be 48 kilowatt, or 48 watt hours, sorry. The boot drive in the NVMe caddy is a 512 gig NVMe SSD running Windows 10 because, as you'll see later in the video, don't know how visible that is for you. Let me tilt this up, bring it in. We've got a whole bunch of software to test out, including IntelliJ, PyCharm community. We've got Git installed as an app. I've been doing free code camp, which I installed as a web app. We've got a bunch of games to test. We've got a load of benchmarking stuff for later. But most of this was already on here. So I've got this drive out of my X1 Carbon that I've been using for X1 Carbon 4th Gen that I've been using to code on, or to learn tentatively to code on. And then outside of that, in the wireless WAN slot, because it didn't come with antennas, so that would have been quite a difficult fix. I didn't realise that was open. But yeah, it's got the Think shutter as well, that's probably worth mentioning. The wireless WAN cables weren't there, so I put a 128 gig 2242 NVMe in the wireless WAN slot. So I've just been using that. Prior to this, I've used it for a Linux distro. And then I had Windows 11 on a 256 gig SSD, but now I've got it with, currently I think it's just got Fortnite on it. Yeah, Epic Fortnite. So I've got Fortnite on there at the moment, and then I'm going to use it later in the video when I'm going to test some video editing as like a scratch disk, or like, so keep the files on the files I'm editing are on that 128 gig, and then render to the 512 gig, meaning that I'm not rendering and sourcing the files from the same drive. I've also got this in the back here. It's got a little slot. Let me see if you can see that fine. Yeah, a little slot here, where your SD card goes, basically. And so I've got an SDXC card in there, 128 gig, which has just like got a bunch of music on it at the moment. My discography that's on Bandcamp that I've been streaming, so I don't have to necessarily have. It's got more than my full discography on it, basically. So I don't know if you can see how many files there are there, but that's all albums I've written. So that adds another 128 gigs. So we've got like 750-ish gigabyte total storage across SDXC, 2242 NVMe, and base boot drive. So that's quite handy. As you can see, I'm using Microsoft mouse without borders. Running Windows 10 Pro. The graphics are the Intel UHD 620, I think, or Intel, yeah, UHD 620. 720p webcam, which looks alright. If I remember, I'll put in some B-roll. Hello, so this is just a quick cutaway section of an example of the webcam. I believe it's 720p 30. It looks alright. I mean, like quite a well-lit room. Well-lit room. I assume I'm using the built-in mic array as well. So this is an example of both the video quality of the built-in webcam behind the Think shutter, which you can close off by using the mechanical switch, and the built-in mic array. So, cheers. We'll cut to that now. The battery does need replacing, so it seems to be running a lot better than it ever has before. But we used a full 10% battery now in probably 10 minutes. So realistically, although it's saying here 5 hours, I would imagine that's probably like an hour max battery life. So I'll be replacing that later on, as I've already mentioned. So that's basically the specs. So the next thing probably worth showing you is the sort of the ports and build quality. So let's bring this up into a nice eye line, and then I'll show you around the setup in a bit. So we've got right here, let me bring it down a little bit, nice angle. Accidentally pressed the stop recording button. So we've got really nice little dinky fast acting fingerprint reader there with a little flashlight to show you when it's reading. The trackpad, to be honest, as like primarily a trackpoint user, like I wouldn't use. It's also touchscreen as well, 1080p touchscreen, but touch capacitive, but doesn't work with the stylus. So it's just like, it was 10-point multi-touch, as you can see from the traces, the trails, and the, I don't know if that's visible, but you get little tracer lines up to 10 points. Trackpad I was talking about. This one isn't great, but you can replace it with a full glass one from a different machine, but I can't remember what machine that is. I think it's a slightly newer version of it, or it's from T440p, I think. I can't remember. If I remember, I'll put it on screen. And then we've got like, so the keyboard, as we'll probably go in more depth with this later on, but the keyboard, if we reference this, for example, which is based on the standard size chiclet keyboard, I don't know if you can see by comparison, it's like sort of, I don't know the exact percentage, but like about 95% the size of the standard chiclet keyboard. The finish on mine isn't great. It hasn't held up greatly over time. But I imagine a brand new model would probably be pretty tasty. Feels like a decent build quality. We've got USB-A port there, 3.0, Kensington lock, CPU vent. This will come to later. Look, if you see there, it vents across, it draws in from there, and then expels it there. Now that's something you have to be cognizant of, especially if you're gaming on this or something. You're using a mouse right there, as you will get a hot hand. And as pictured previously in the last section, you probably want some sort of laptop riser, a la what's over there, a la like this when you're doing a heavy workload, because otherwise you're probably gonna throttle the CPU significantly, which I have found to be the case. Now, what else can I show you about this before we move on? We've got, let's close the lid up now. We've got the USB-C power delivery that also carries a USB and video signal. You've got Thunderbolt 3, which does that. You've got the docking connector, so that's combined into the docking connector, but you can also use that separately with an Ethernet dongle, which you will need for this, because there's no Ethernet, as you can see from the fact that I haven't mentioned one. USB-A, HDMI, quite a nice sounding DAC, like microphone, headphone, combo jack. And on the back, as I showed you earlier, you've got the nice design language, the hinges, and then the SD card slot. If you were to have a SIM card set up in there, this is also where you put your nano SIM. And on the base, we've got a nice clean, like downwards firing speakers just there, but a nice clean base. It's super thin. Rivals X1 carbon territory easily. Super thin. Like mine's not in perfect condition. And as we'll discuss later, I probably would go with the 8 gigs of RAM, but if this is all you can afford, it does surprisingly well with 16 gigs of RAM because it's soldered, but it does surprisingly well with 8 gigs of RAM. So that's ports. Let me just double check there's anything I haven't missed while you're staring at the laptop down there. So we've got ports. Yeah, I've said here it's a budget build quality, but still very durable. To replace the trackpad. Small form factor keyboard, yes. USB dongles, for example, I've got, you can actually buy a dedicated dongle specifically for the docking port connector, but I just got this. So it's a Ethernet dongle with either USB-C, so you can go directly into either of those ports, or USB-A. It's like £6, quite nice Chinese, but cheap stuff, but does the job. I've also got multiple dongles, which I'll show you later on in the setup tour. One of which already has Ethernet built in. And then I've also got the docking station for this, which is currently occupied by my T480, just over there, that I showed you in the beginning of the video. So it's under there behind that desk. So maybe I'll bring that out, maybe I won't, I don't really know yet. But no built-in Ethernet, so you get a dongle that just goes in there if it really bothers you. They're like £8 on Amazon, probably £4 on eBay. And yeah, so probably the next thing I want to do now would be look at some synthetic benchmarks. So we're going to move from here onto the screen, powered instead of battery, and try and see what we can get best case scenario, just native on the device with Cinebench, Passmark, Blender, and then 1080p DaVinci footage. Then we might add eGPU because I don't think it'll do 4K, and Crystal this much. So let's dive in with that. So just before we go into said benchmarks, which are listed here, so we've got Blender, Handbrake, whatever that is, Cinebench, and some DaVinci. Right. Before we do that, I'll just show you my little setup. So we've got this vertical riser that I got on Amazon, made by Vadir, is that? Vadir? So I've got my Chromebook and my X280, and then they're switchable via KVM with the mouse and keyboard dongles for this mouse and keyboard, which we're not using at the moment because I'm using my via Bluetooth, using my external Bluetooth lush little keyboard. We've got a controller there where I've muted the TV because we're going to capture audio over here, which I'll come back to in a minute. I've got my blue light filtering glasses. And then obviously, because this isn't a permanent setup, it's just for them coding, it's a bit messy on the cable management. But this main screen is captured here in OBS. This screen is connected to my P51 for capture via the Elgato HD60S Plus, and then this eGPU is connected to another, if I show you the anarchy down here, another capture card, which is the standard HD60, so that when we're gaming later and benchmarking DaVinci, which I'll probably do with an eGPU, just to give it a fair chance, so at least the 4K footage will do. 4K footage will do on the eGPU, so we can capture either that PS4 or whatever's attached to this main screen. I can route through there basically via, so that I've got, if I show you here, for example, I have to apologise, my symptoms are crazy today, so I'm a bit disoriented. Right, so we've got console, so that's that for the live, for just different angle. And that's where I've been live streaming to YouTube some coding, so it's capturing that monitor over there. And this laptop monitor. And then we've got multi-stream, where as you can see, that's the HD60 coming from the eGPU or the PS4. So we're going to switch this back to here, because that's where we want it to go. So I just thought I'd briefly show you that. So thankfully the Quadro in the P51 is actually surprisingly efficient because it's using CUDA, obviously, because it's an NVIDIA workstation card. I've got it set, if I show you this here, we're at 4K 60, and you're about to see if that actually works as soon as I press record and move over to the other angle. But 4K 60 capture seems to be possible if you look down at the CPU usage. 2.3%. It's all offloaded to the GPU. So wish me luck. Now, in regards audio, it might be a little bit rough because I'm going to go through here, so I don't have to keep leaning forward towards that mic. That mic does sound good, but I apologise in advance for the audio quality. This is my cozy coding corner, so we're going to come back to this later, and I'm going to show you some live stream footage as well. And then we've got, from the T480 video, we've still got the mixing, the last video on my channel, last full video rather than live stream. And then we've got like a bunch of stuff. I'm going to be using that Xbox controller, which has a dongle there. That's the dongle for the headset. Vape juice, because I'm trying to quit smoking, which is going excellently, by the way. PS4. Blah, 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 blah. So this is what you're going to see from next. So let's do some of that. Hi. So we're here on the laptop. Capturing at 1080p, 60 FPS. Hopefully this is decent. Quality, I was getting a little bit of input latency on the mic. I had to downgrade from 4K, which is what the rest of the video is in, just because I was getting skip frames and encoding issues on the Quadro, but that's not really relevant to the X280 anyway. So, first port of call, we got Crystal Disk Mark. So this here is the main SSD, which is the 512 gig one. So you can see for yourself the performance there. Looking like pretty decent, like PCI Gen 4x speeds. Then this is the wireless WAN slot SSD, which is Z. And you can see there's like quite a depreciation in that 2242 via the wireless WAN slot in terms of speed. So we've gone from 2500 sequential read to 810, which is not the end of the world, but you don't want any system critical stuff on here. So probably good enough for running games, but I'd say keep your operating system, if you can, ideally to the main drive. What's it called? The main M.2 drive. And then you could just have like, I don't know, like I've got Fortnite on here, so that loads, 810, that's going to be fast enough for reading. You can see all the data there, so that's main drive bay, that's wireless WAN, and then this is the SDXC card, which, to be fair, 1934 is pretty good for an SD card. Obviously the random 4K is going to be pretty low, but like it's not as bad as I was expecting it to be. So this is the SDXC card, and you can see it's performing reasonably well for like a detachable drive. So I'm pleased with that. So there's your results for that. Probably should have minimized them in case I need to refilm, but oh well. I tried running Cinebench in a previous take that I had to drop because it was fluffed. But what I've done for this attempt, so previously I had the HDMI cable attached to the USB-C dongle, then, so that's already a bottleneck anyway, then going through a KVM, then into a capture card, then into the monitor. So it crapped out, so I'm just going to give it one more go. As you can see, the lowest performing computer here is an 12th gen i7 28p with 14 cores, 20 threads. So I don't expect a miracle on this. This is Cinebench 2024, so let's try multi-core. See if it actually works, because what I've done is I've switched the HDMI directly to the onboard HDMI port of the X280. So if it does anything other than what it just did there, right, it just crashed out, so that's why. What I was expecting, it failed to allocate necessary GPU recyclable memory, aborting this render. Won't even let us do the single core, which is what happened before. I think it's probably going to be the same now. So at least I've established that the UHD graphics aren't being bottlenecked by the USB-C dongle, so it's got the same point of failure. Gets to the preparing stage and then just craps out. And oh no, it's actually rendering single core. Oh my god. Oh my god, that's exciting. Well, this will take probably 10 minutes, so I'll be back excited and pleased to see what happens. So I'll be back when it's done. And so we're back with Cinebench, and as you can see, we got 53 points on the single core, which unsurprisingly outstripped the Threadripper, or quite surprisingly. But yeah, single core, 53 points. So that's what we got. I don't think there's any of the 4-core CPUs here. No. So it took, how long did it take? I can't remember. It was like 15, 17 minutes or so, but we rendered this. And that's how Cinebench did. I might come back to this later, pardon me, and capture to see if with just the laptop, I'll film it on my phone basically. If just the laptop can do the multi-core, and it might be that it's an external device is causing that issue. So I'll come back to that later. Next thing we've got is, let's see, do I have any footage on here? Let's see, Blender, and then yeah, I'll be back in just 2 minutes. I'm going to get the BMW render Blender benchmark. So we've got Blender open, which seems to be running fine on the device. I should imagine it would be, because it runs as old as... Oh, why is my mouse lagging out? Oh yeah, because I'm using mouse without borders. Network latency. Benchmark launcher, where is that gone? Oh, I extracted it as a separate thing. Benchmark launcher, let's try this. This is the Blender benchmark. I think it does a BMW
You'll collect data about your device's hardware and operating system. You'll choose the end whether or not to publish this data. So let's have a look. Latest version. Following scenes: monster, junk shop, classroom, download benchmark. So I'm just going to pause while it's doing that. Okay, so we're just about to do this benchmark run on Blender, but I wanted to show you quickly. We'll come back to references later, but current charge 27.38 watt, full charge capacity 27.38 watt. So with that, so it's about, would you say 2/3, three-fifths of its original capacity. So 57%, there we go. So it's nearly 60% of its original capacity. Accumulated charge cycle 6480. I've got a brand new battery coming. So I'm intrigued to see how that pans out. But I just want to reference it whilst I was screen capturing that this new battery will be that capacity. So I'm intrigued to see what the performance differences over time on the battery. But that was just a slight side note. So here we go, the Blender benchmark, start benchmark. Probably not going to leave this running with the screen capture on. So I'm going to stop and report back with the data. Let's see. See you in. And here we are. So we've got 20 something samples per minute, 1.2 and 8, and then we've got OS, Windows, ND64, Intel. So for submit results, so let's have a look. Open browser. I don't want to do this. So 1 second. So we've done that. Submit. Token was verified. Look at the launcher. Continue. Count area. Boom. View results in browser. So 29.93. Now that doesn't mean anything to me, but if you're using Blender and you wanted to have that information, the score was 29.93 on Blender 4.3.0. CPU rendered. We're going to just do a comparison. So anonymous CPU. Looking at it, top 98% of all benchmarks. Quantile. Don't know what this means, but I'm going to leave it on screen for you so you can see it. So we've got right the way up the top there, we've got RTX 3080, and right the way down here in the bottom, just above, an Intel i5 620, and just below, 10th gen i5 1035G1. So there's your comparison point there, basically. Right, where next? Right, quit that. And then the next thing I was going to do was, so we've got Handbrake, we've got done Crystal Disk Mark, we've done Cinebench, we've done Blender, Handbrake and DaVinci. Let's try DaVinci. I'm going to transfer some footage over here and then come back to you, okay? See you soon. So I'm just pulling down a looping set I did. Not a looping set, like a looping song I did. So we got a bit of time. 6 was just calculating and seems to be rendering, and then I've got the audio there. This is all recorded. That was recorded on my looping setup on the T480 over there, and then filmed on my phone. So I'm just bringing those down. We're going into DaVinci. Just look at preferences. It questioned my operating system oddly. It said something about use neural engine optimization on Intel. Very intriguing. Don't know what that means, but cool. Media storage, yeah, we got all that. So I set up DaVinci basically to my liking. So I'm just gonna do a quick test timeline render. So using the 2242 NVMe, I'll drop that in. Then we're gonna just wait a minute for the thing to finish, and then I'll come back. Pausing. Okay, so we're going to do some very rudimentary. Let's just check we've got 1080p. I believe I set it to 1080p, but we want to go to project settings. 1080p 24. So that's peculiar because this is not 24 frames per second footage. We'll see how that pans out. But there, you see it's reasonably snappy on the timeline without any optimizations. Let's see. And we're gonna highlight. I'm just using the track point for this. There's nothing cooler to me than using the track point and being able to one-handed video edit. I think that's just a sick little option. So there we go. We've got that. I'm just gonna clip this. As you can see, the timeline performance before your very eyes. And then we Control X that. Undo. Just that and Control X. Then we're going to grab this, I'm going to shimmy it along, then we're going to that and have a little listen. This is some weird bloody, you should be able to hear it. This is some looping piece I made with my Jinananda, which is like the Jinananda project, which is my little hobby looping project. So I'm going to render this out in a minute. I'm just seeing how the timeline performance is. Because if I like scrub, doing alright. I'm going to save the project quickly, see how it quickly tracks it. Vocal looping. Jumped along nicely because that's something I often get stuck with. And this. Let's boost the volume on the backing track a little bit. Make sure we're not peaking. Drop that down to about there. Save. See, we're getting less than ideal frames a second on the timeline. Delay there, but that's at 1080p. It's a sick piece of music. I'll try and share it in the description. But now we're going to go to deliver. I'm going to put it on MP4. Encoder auto. We just want to do 1080p YouTube settings for now. Encoding profile is high. Good. We've got all this. I'm going to add to render queue. And then probably render direct to the built-in SSD just there. Boom. I'm going to call it, I should have renamed it, but call it vocal looping. I'm recording on a Gin project. And then we're going to add to render queue. It's giving us 24 frames a second. Entire timeline, 1080p to render queue. So I'm going to pause and be back, but I'm just going to just do that just after we get that estimation. So on the Intel HD UHD graphics, we're getting pop-up task manager. So 20 minutes for a roughly 7-minute clip. I'm going to do performance. I'm going to just way to make it always on top. There we go. And then if we double click there, and then give it a minute because this is quite a large task for it to ask. How do I way to? I just do this. See CPU. I don't just want CPU. I want to show all logical processors. You see the RAM is at 6.8. Intel UHD is maxed out. As you would imagine it would be, 100% utilization almost. SSDs are nice and cozy. CPU is about 70% utilization, but a very low clock speed, so it's throttling down to a lower clock speed, which is fine because it can go up to like I think 3.6, 3.4, something like that. So as you can see, I'll be back, but we got 15 minutes for a roughly 9-minute video. So I'll be back with the results of that.
So we're still rendering out. We've got 9 minutes left on the clock, so it's done. It's about what 47% done. 9 minutes on the clock. CPU's high utilization, low clock speed. RAM hovering around 6.7, so maxed out. GPU, I don't even want to look. I want to give you the sound from the CPU fan in this vertical orientation. It's running, but it's not screaming. You see, let's see, GPU utilization just maxed out at 90 something percent, which is what you would hope for. Surprising though, because I didn't think that works. So it must be something to do with that Intel thing we were looking at earlier in the previous clip. But it's doing the job, it's doing it. So what we're going to do next, we're going to I'll come back to the results on there, screen captured. Then I'll go undock that from there, plug it into the eGPU, which is hiding just behind there. Then move the capture card over to there, because the base footage is 4K 24, I think. I think it's definitely 4K. And if not, I'll use some different footage. And then render it on this screen, again captured there via the second capture card. So next thing you'll see will be the end results of this render, and then we'll try and get some 4K footage on the go of probably the same clip. I can probably just use the same file and render it at 4K on the eGPU to see what kind of performance we get. So we'll dive in with that. See you with the results of the 1080p render. Boom.
Right, cool. 1080p render results. So we got 17 minutes 4 seconds. So the CPU was, as you can see, it's 3.2 just idle now, 23%. Don't know, that's probably because DaVinci's open. But it dropped down similarly to my T480. It dropped down. So my T480 dropped down to 2.4 when rendering, right? This dropped down as low as 1.6, I believe, 1.8, maybe 1.8 if memory serves. You'll have seen in the previous bit of footage. RAM usage was pretty good. UHD graphics were maxed out the whole time. But 17 minutes, so we got 1080p 24 frames a second. The footage was 7 minutes and 20, so little over double the length, probably 115% of the length. So I'm gonna just come back with the 4K render in a minute, because what I want to do, I want to take the output of that quick before we move on to 4K re-rendering and encode it in Blender. So this is the resulting file we want there for now. I'm going to try and encode that when. So I'll leave this on in the background a minute. Oh, I've clicked off on something. What just happened? Nothing good. Why is it not playing that? Oh, I muted. That's why. Mute that. Cool. Right. Pause that a minute. So we've got. My brain is screwed today. I apologize. So open video file. We're going to encode this video file from. We want fast. What do we want? 1080p. Don't want 4K. It's just fast 1080p 30. Or yeah, let's just do default. And then it's 720. And we're going to just look and see how it renders. Where's the output? 1080p, save file as. We're going to render it back to the 22 nvme. Might slow it down a little bit, but it should be fine. All that so I know what it is. Delete, 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 delete. Handbrake. Coded. That's all fine. Fastly on metadata. Add to queue. Current start queue. Right. So while that's doing its thing, I'm going to pause. And then once we've done this, we'll look at the results of this, and then we'll do the 4K re-rendering with the eGPU, which will be, by the way, the RX 6600 8GB. So see you in the next section. Bye. So I'm not quite sure how Handbrake works, but it says queue finished with one error detected. Check queue window. Fails. Coded unknown failure. So I don't know what that means, but it looks like Handbrake encoding it didn't like that. So that's a reference point for you. I might be able to fix it by trying different encoding settings, but I don't really know how that works. So what we'll do, quick, do this. And what I was thinking, now I'm going to take an undock, and I'm going to re-render this video at 4K 24 frames per second using the eGPU. It gets really trippy in this recording. Damn, I forgot how good that was. Right, so I'll see you on this angle with this no signal being the eGPU output. So I'll see you there. Peace. So now we are recording. As you can see, I'm angled over here. This is over this way now on the big 40-inch TV that you saw a bit ago, 43-inch 1080p TV. See, we're opening DaVinci Resolve. We're going to go to that vocal looping setup. It's probably going to question my GPU setup. Might not, might do. I'm going to go to custom export. I'm going to go to project settings. I'm going to bump this up to 4K. Save. And then rendering to, yep, that's all fine. Native 1024. Okay. I'm going to do quality. I'm going to just make sure in preferences, I assume this is recording, yes it is. Make sure in preferences we're using the right GPU, which we are. Look, you can see OpenCL, AMD, RX 6600 8GB has been selected. Good. We're going to do to the correct drive, that's fine. So these, if you want to pause and just take a little look on the left hand side at these settings. But as you can see, we haven't edited it in any other way, we're just rendering it at a higher resolution. Quality, high encoding profile, timeline frame rate, which is 24 frames a second. Timeline resolution, which is 4K. It is 4K footage, 4K 60. So we're going to just title it 4K 24 FPS. Sorry, it's 4K 24. Vocal looping render with the GPU. I'm going to add to render queue. Now in theory, it shouldn't make much difference, but we've got the eGPU attached, so we're going to see what happens. It's going to probably take a lot longer, but here we go. So it's an hour, 30 minutes. You can see in the top right, just above my head up there, straight up to the top. And it's saying about 25 minutes. So I'm going to return in 25 minutes or so with the final output and render time using the eGPU. Now I don't know if what am I trying to say? Sorry, brain fart. I'm really not well today. Right, I don't know if the additional render time will be CPU bottlenecked anyway, because I don't know if it encodes on AMD GPUs. So I'll be intrigued to see what the end result of that is. So I'll be back and inform you of the end results. So a quick mid-render check-in. So we're now seeing quick mid-render check-in. Seeing 100% CPU utilization as opposed to 60-70 with a much higher clock speed. So that's reassuring. It's very akin to what the T480 was doing, 2.4 gigahertz. RAM is exactly the same. The GPU utilization on the RX 6600 8GB in the eGPU is 30-ish%. SSD 3%. SSD, yeah. So we're seeing much better CPU utilization now. We've got an external graphics card. So higher utilization, higher clock speed. GPUs hovering around the 20 to 30% load. And I just thought I'd check in with that, just so you've got a reference point. So it's working harder at a higher clock speed, rendering 4 times the render resolution of the timeline, so 4 times 1080p. So if it's this screen, it's 4 times 1080p is 4K. So I'll be back with the end results. We've got about 17, 18 minutes on the clock. Boom. So we are completed of the 4K render task. CPU is pegged 100% the whole way through. I believe I showed you about 30% GPU utilization, 6.9 gigs of RAM, most it could use really. I see committers ramped up. I think I get what it's called, but like swap space on the SSD to 20.4 gig. It's now dropping down where it's calming the hell down. CPU locked about 2.3 to 2.5, 100% utilization. Throughout the course of the proceedings, we've got 22 minutes 6 seconds render time for 4K. Exactly the same file, but 4 times the resolution. And I won't have the audio on because I think my capture card is glitching a little bit. It looks pretty clean. We've got audio output through laptop speakers. But yes, it looks like it did a good job, basically. It did the job, pardon me, required of it. So that's all of the synthetic benchmarks and some rendering and other sort of benchmarks. Next thing we've got is gaming. So we're going to start back over at this other setup, do some Intel UHD 620 iGPU graphics rendering tests, not rendering tests, gaming tests. Then we're going to repeat them back on the eGPU for the same games, then do some more heavy duty games that I know for sure won't run on the integrated graphics. So I'll see you in the next section where we're going to look at some gaming on integrated graphics. Bye. Hello once again, mes amis. We are in gaming benchmark first. So what we're aiming for is to try and get each game to, let's see, detect optimal settings. It says very high, but then that's ignoring a whole bunch of stuff. So I found a sweet spot for this game was around ish. So 30 is our minimum frame rate desired target. As you can see in the top left, we've got MSI Afterburner. So the GPU is integrated Intel graphics memory. So we've got CPU clock speed. We've got RAM usage, memory. I don't know what that's referring to. And then we've got the frames per second from MSI Afterburner. So we're going to go into Middle Earth briefly. Just have a look around. see what performance we get. So we're going to benchmark this on the eGPU as well, once we've gotten... God, my brain is screwed. Right, we're testing Lord of the Rings Online, Minecraft and Fortnite all on the integrated graphics. Then we're going to have a look at Control F. It'll show you once it's loaded in a little bit. So we want minimum 30 frames a second. So let's try low. Let's try very low. See what that looks like. So that's got us above that 30 frames a second. It doesn't look amazing, but we have a playable frame rate. Looking up at the sky, looks pretty weak. We could probably, if I had the time and energy, try DirectX 10, but we'd have to log out for that and restart it. But yeah, let's see. So low settings, let's try DirectX 11, and then so that's very low. Let's try regular low. Looks a bit better than that. So that's pretty much the sweet spot. We've turned anti-aliasing as well. This is 1080p. There we go. Look at that jump, massive jump up to 60. So that's what I'm targeting really, is 60 frames a second for each game. What settings we need to get 60 frames a second? See, we've got not much popping. I'm Davigorn, Watcher of Roads. So yeah, we got a solid 60, and our settings are DirectX 11, low settings but not very low. Anti-aliasing disabled, no more additional faff there. You can see here we've got material detail is high and linear, all this sort of stuff preset. So if you want to pause and go through, you're welcome to. But yeah, so we're around 60-ish. 6 gigs of RAM, CPU 3 gigahertz, Intel UHD 620 is almost 90% utilization. So that's our first frame of reference now for the performance of this game. So what I'm going to try and do, if I don't mess this up, I'm going to do like-for-like comparisons between the three first games. So hopefully, if I get this right, the next thing you see will be the eGPU performance, but the next thing I'll be doing is Minecraft. So see you shortly. So here we are, back in Lord of the Rings Online. We're going to detect optimal settings. So it's giving us very high, DirectX 11. Probably go ultra high, see what that does, accept. And then anti-aliasing, try that, ramped us up a lot before. Bear in mind we're targeting 30 frames a second, so let's go in, because it's non-intensive, non-timing sensitive MMORPG, so we don't need 60 frames a second for this game. If we can get it, that'd be nice. You can see we've got CPU 3.4 gigahertz, nearly 8 gigs of RAM. You see the frame rate bouncing around. GPU 1 is the AMD RX 6608 gigabyte. Let's just see, 23 frames a second, 37. So if you can see the fidelity difference here. I don't know whether it's as apparent on the game capture, but it looks better by a large margin. To get that up a little bit higher, we're going to try very high, keeping that anti-aliasing on, wait for the pop-in to stop. There we go. Like you can see, we're up into the 40-50 frames a second. No stutter to my eye. CPU sitting around 3 gigahertz. RX 6600 8 gigabyte, sitting around 50% utilization and 1.3 gigs of VRAM. So let's just try popping that back up to ultra. Boom. And we're getting same amount of VRAM, but higher utilization. So VRAM would be this MEM1, so 1.2 gig of VRAM in usage, and it looks great. I'm not seeing any noticeable stutter. Let's jump around a bit. Oh, we've got to hold right click, I remember. Yeah, that's great. Really happy with that. Over that, so yeah, you can see that's a significant improvement in performance, which we kind of knew it would be, but now you've got the actual metrics. So we've gone from low to 40 frames a second up to maxed out on everything, same frame rate with the eGPU. So yeah, I'm going to just close that up for Lord of the Rings Online. Then we're going to be back with Minecraft on the eGPU. So let's check that out. So here we are in Minecraft on the integrated graphics. We're getting a little bit of stutter where it's loading in for the first time. It's a brand new world. Let's see the video settings. We're on fancy. Render distance 12 chunks, simulation distance 12 chunks, max frame rate 120. We're unlimited. 5x5, full screen. VSync off. We want that off. Clouds fancy. You can see where we're at with this. And then I'm probably going to put it on not fabulous, fast, fancy. Right, we'll leave it on fancy. See what we're getting. You can see MSI Afterburner at the top. Popping in, popping in, popping in. Space, space. Let's fly around and see if it drops off. Go up. It's getting a nice bit of stutter down to like sub 30 frames per second. It's all popping in. But you're seeing the general sort of performance we're getting in Minecraft, so it's not terrible. Not terrible at all. Not perfect, but we're over that playable 30 frames a second pretty consistently most of the time. Probably less if I was not playing on creative mode. A bit stuttery, so we probably want to get that down to fast. Let's try fast, keeping everything else the same. It's re-popping in. Let's see if that stutter's still there. Never understood why control was run in Minecraft. Never understood that, but I know I can rebind it, but on principle. Whack! Whack! Whack, 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 whack. So yeah, that's pretty good. So we're using about 8 gigs of RAM, CPUs stuck around about 2.4 maxing out as integrated graphics, 100% utilization. We're getting nearly 70 FPS on fast. Looking pretty nice, playable, definitely playable now. So next you'll see Minecraft on the eGPU. Might even test ray tracing, we'll see how we get on. But the next thing I'll be doing will be Fortnite. So see you after the next section with Fortnite on the integrated graphics. It's always pleasing when you load into Minecraft and you see plus 250 frames a second. Always a nice feeling, but we're just looking at a wall here. Let's wait for it all to pop in, load in. And then we're going to go options, video settings. We're going to go to fabulous. Leave all this the same. VSync we've got off, GUI scale. I'm going to change that because that annoys me because we're on a massive 43-inch TV now. What else can I put up? Particles, fast, fancy, all, max frame rate unlimited. So we could probably change the render distance and render chunks, but simulation distance, sorry, render distance. But for now, I'm going to leave it just at that, so you can see what an absolute massive improvement that is. So we're still down under. Yeah, I mean, we've got like a 280 frames a second improvement. You can see up here, so you've got 83% GPU utilization, only 1 gig of VRAM. So we could push it a lot more than this as well, probably sub 1 gig of VRAM, 50% utilization. So let's just have a little look, see what we get. So if we double the render chunks, that might mess us up a lot. Let's see how it does with that. Done. Let's try. It's going to crash probably. Give it a minute. No. Yeah, now that was a bad idea. Loaded. There's no need to push it that far, to be fair. Like no one needs that much render chunks. Let's take it down to like 15. Leave it there. Try that. So we're getting above our desired. Oh no, I'll give it a minute to level out. Back up to 60 frames a second, so that we were targeting 60 frames a second. And we're on, look at those leaves falling, don't they look pretty? So VRAM, we still got a fair bit of room left, and now it's adapted. Let's fly up. Yeah, we're getting quite a lot of stutter now. So we've pushed it as far as we can, really. And if you see, the CPU isn't the bottleneck. GPU is jumping around. So GPU 1 in the top left. It's jumping around wildly. It's not very stable. But it's working. Yeah, let's speed run. Yeah, very stuttery. So we've shown that whilst there's a massive improvement, let's get that down to like 12 again. See if that restabilizes it. Yep. Just let it pop in. More than playable, 75 frames a second. I'm happy with that. So there's our reference point for Minecraft, seeing a significant improvement as expected. So next one is Fortnite. Let's see if it's actually playable this time on the eGPU. Hello, we are in integrated graphics mode on Fortnite. So it's given us Windows full screen, which is good. We can see the frame rate. RAM usage is completely maxed out. Pardon me. CPU down to 1.2. Integrated graphics 100% utilization, 35 frames per second. So what I really want, we got performance mode, lower graphical fidelity, which, let me just read this. Yeah, that's good. Brightness, none of this is relevant. 3D render resolution. View distance, yeah, you can see for yourself. Let's get their frame rate counter on as well. So textures epic. So let's put graphics performance mode. And we want frame rate limiter off. And VSync is off. Good. Now, you got 30 FPS, so play. Now, I don't want to go into a full battle royale. Forget how you do this. Forget how this goddamn game works. And I'm looking for party. No. No, don't show you any of that. So I want to try. I just want the Lego mode, really. Recently and played. So I played this on PS4 recently. I think it's linked. I'm just trying to see. So again, sub 30 frames a second at the moment. Right, we're not going to survival. Right, let's try that. Let's try this. Got it. Direct. And we're going to see how it performs. And then go into game. Try and get above 30 to 60 FPS. I'm guessing those textures are probably, the epic textures are probably where I want to be directing my efforts towards reducing the load on the machine. We'll see what happens once we're in game, because the menus alone are lagging out. See, let's be patient. So remember, this is integrated graphics. We're going to look at Fortnite on the eGPU later on. And that should be a pretty epic. Excuse the pun. That should be. They should perform pretty damn well with the eGPU. I'm quite confident of that. Maxing out our RAM at over 7.6 gigs. CPU 2.4. 30% GPU utilization, but I imagine that's going to howl upwards. Let me listen. You can hear the CPU is going nuts. It's like nicely vented here though, because this is big space between the two laptops, so that's good. Let's see what Lego Fortnite Brick Life gets. Oh, look at that! It's like a slideshow. Right. 4 FPS. Okay, yeah. E. This is awful. Right. It's to be expected. Right. Let's go. No settings. No, leave me alone. So we want. Let's try full screen, and then we want to go 16 by 900. Let's try 720p. Why not? And textures. View distance down to medium. Textures down to medium. Let's try and see if that helps. Has it crashed? It has not crashed, but it looks weird. This might be my capture card having an uncomfortable time of it. Well, I don't know. Not enjoying this, that's that much I know. There we go, it came up with the keep these settings. Come on, let me keep them. Keep changes, there we go. Keep the changes. Keep changes. Kept the changes. Right. Let's have a look. Have we got anything more than 1 FPS? Try. Let's have a look. Oh damn, this is... Right, that looks awful. 20 FPS though, so we've gained 19 FPS. I think the game's just crashed, or have I tabbed out by going to the wrong screen? Let me just quickly turn off mouse without borders. Let's see if that fixes it. Okay. Not gonna lie, this is a pretty bad experience. Even down at 720p. Right, let's see what else we can do. It's required to enable nano. So there's no 3D resolution. We want leave that off. Let's get view distance down to low. Textures down to low. Is there anything else we can change? No, not really. Apply and test. I was led to believe by the internet that this would be playable on integrated graphics. Evidently not. Oh god. Well, that is just awful. So yeah, I mean that's the conclusion. Awful. Awful performance. So that is the third game we're doing a direct comparison to. So next you'll see with the eGPU, and then I'll be back after that with some bad man gaming on really high-end hardware comparatively to this iGPU situation. So I'll see you shortly. So second run Fortnite. We've got the RX 6600GB attached, so we're going to go full 1080p, VSync off, frame rate unlimited. And we're going to go DirectX 12. Window mode full screen. We're going to put view distance back up to epic, textures, epic, meshes, high. And then just test it out, see how we get on. Give it a minute, keep changes. Restart now. Okay, so we're currently getting 120 FPS, up from 5. Let's wait for the game to restart. Let's see how we get on. going to start by itself, or do we need to click the clicker? Oh, I see a loading icon. I think it's restarting. Make sure we're not got our second screen on. Yeah, good. Let's launch Fortnite again. So bear in mind, we were on sub double digit, so single digit almost frame rate, as you saw on the integrated graphics. Let's see how we get on with basically everything maxed out 1080p. I'm just going to pause while it loads in, so waste less of your precious lives. Loading's taking a hot minute. It's been about probably 180, 2-3 minutes. Maybe 2. Let's be kind. It's been about 2 minutes for it to restart. Let's see how we get on. So obviously, U-series CPU is always going to be a bottleneck. The 8 gigs of RAM maxed out, definitely a bottleneck. If we had the 16 gigs of RAM version, and maybe the i7, one of the i7s in this machine, which, just for reference, I strongly recommend. If you're going to buy one of these machines, definitely get the 16 gigs of RAM. I get in by fine on the 8 gigs of RAM for what I'm using it for, but if you're gaming or editing or rendering or doing whatever, okay, same best settings. Let's just try that then. This could take some time, it says. I wanted to see the settings I just picked, but we'll see how we get on, because it's getting pretty tanked on the frame rate at the moment. See what Fortnite recommends. There we go. So let's see what it's giving us. Right. So we got that. The only difference is it's put on custom settings. So anti-aliasing is super resolution TSR medium, which is temporal super resolution. Yeah, okay. Temporal super resolution recommended. That nano off, so that's good. I mean, see, all these settings weren't available before, but it's looking like high settings for most of it. And then let's dive into that brick life quick. See if I can give you a direct real world comparison. I'm not doing a royale. Don't wheel me to do a battle royale because I can't be bothered. And this is taking me a long time as it is to get to this point. So I just want to see 30 plus 45 frames a second. Be welcoming to new players. Yes, Fortnite should be fun for everyone. That is very, very true. So let's see how we get on preparing shaders. Right, I'll be back when we're actually in game. Hold on. So it's still taking its sweet time. It says preparing shaders. I don't know how long this could take, so I'm going to use this opportunity to just wax lyrical momentarily. Let me increase my face size. So, if I was to recommend in tiered suggestions this laptop, if you just want a low power budget machine and you're not going to use an eGPU, you're not going to be rendering gaming footage or video editing at all above 1080p, I would probably say the specs I've got, the 8250U i5 and the 8 gigs of RAM is probably fine. Oh look, we're in. Let me just finish my thoughts. But if you're going to game and use an eGPU and all this sort of stuff, like I'm doing here, it would not hurt you to have the i7. Let's see if it stabilizes. We're on sub 30 frames a second at the moment. So what can we do to adjust that? But yeah, it wouldn't hurt you really to get the i7 and the 16 gigs of RAM. I would strongly recommend that, to be honest, because let's see, anti-aliasing. If we go down to TSR low, can we do that? It's gonna crash. Let's go there, TSR low. Let's try that, apply and test. Probably dynamic render resolution would be useful as well. But we're still bugging out. but it's given us pretty high settings, so don't know. Right, let me come back to my thoughts in a minute. I'm just going to pause because I'm having a mild panic. Okay, so I don't know how much of that last section of footage was usable. I was advising you to get the i7 if you can afford it, and the 16 gigs of RAM if you can afford it. If you're planning to use the machine for gaming, video editing above 1080p 60. My headset cut out, ran out of battery. Looks like the last settings you would have seen, basically DirectX 11 change, which hopefully yields good results. So we'll see what happens when we get loaded into Fortnite Lego Brick Life. Why I'm testing that, I don't know. I just really don't want to ruin anyone's day by being crap in their battle royale, basically. So let's have a look and see what happens. Pause it till we're in the game. And we're in game. Got this little notification. And we're still around 14 frames a second. 14, 11. Everything's maxed out. We're getting wildly varying GPU utilization. It looks crap. It's not even holding 30 FPS even though we've loaded in now. I wouldn't recommend playing Fortnite Brick Life on this system. So that's one factor. So let's go down to 30 FPS. DirectX 11 we're on. Let's try 1600 by 900. Then this is my last attempt with this bloody game because I'm getting fed up already. Quality we want low. TSR low. Let's just try. Yeah, anti-aliasing down. Temporal super resolution is not. 3D render resolution. Let's try 75. It's my last attempt because I'm so fed up with this. I hate Fortnite anyway. So let's just see. Do we get playable frame rate in Fortnite with the settings that I just chose? Let's have a look. Brick Life. Let's go. Let's get in the Brick Life. Of course not. So I don't know whether it's poorly optimized for eGPUs. Don't know whether it's something I'm doing wrong, but I am not remotely interested in playing this game anymore. It's making me panic and angry at the same time. So, conclusion: Fortnite Brick Life at the very least. Probably Battle Royale would work better if you put it on like competitive frame rate, 720p, something like that. But it looks like it's just poop in the bed and not interested in playing Fortnite. And I am fed up of testing and trying to make it work. So, on with the next section of the video, which would be a look around the desk setup probably. And some coding. And just the standalone device usage reflections and ideas. So I shall see you there after I destroyed this install of Fortnite and never play it again.
It's just got that generic swag, you know? It's just like generally gangster. You feel me?
Hi, my name's TechDave. This is why I've been used by an in-depth,
you know, gangster overall. You know what I say? I like kind of, well, I'm just like this.
Hi, my name's TechDave, and today we're going to discuss in an in-depth, long-term video why I think you might think those are custom